Namaste, Dandava Pranam. By the instruction and grace of our spiritual master, Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj, we're here reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We are starting Canto 3, the Status Quo, Chapter 1, Questions by Vidura, Text 1. Shri Shuka Uvacha Evam etat pura prishto Maitreyo Bhagavan Kila Shatravanam Pravishtena Tyaktva Svagriham Rihimat. Shukadev Goswami said, for announcing his prosperous home and entering the forest, King Vidura, the great devotee, asked this question of his grace Maitreya Rishi. Text 2. Yadbhayam mantra krid kridva Bhagavan Akhileshvara Puravendra Graham Hitva Praviveshatma Shatkritam. What else is there to say about the residential house of the Pandavas? Sri Krishna, the Lord of everything, acted as your minister. He used to enter that house as if it were his own home, and he did not take any care of Duryodhana's house. Purport. According to the Gaudiya Achintya Bheda Bheda Tattva philosophy, anything which satisfies the senses of Supreme Lord Krishna is also Sri Krishna. For example, Sri Vrindavan Dham is non-different from Sri Krishna, Tad Dhamma Vrindavanam, because at Vrindavan, the Lord enjoys the transcendental bliss of his internal potency. Similarly, the house of the Pandavas was also the source of transcendental bliss for the Lord. It is mentioned here that the Lord identified the house with his own self. Thus, the house of the Pandavas was as good as Vrindavan, and Vidura should not have given up that place of transcendental bliss. Therefore, the reason for his quitting the house was not exactly family misunderstanding. Rather, Vidura took the opportunity to meet Rishi Maitreya and discuss transcendental knowledge. For a saintly person like Vidura, any disturbance due to worldly affairs is insignificant. Such disturbances, however, are sometimes favorable for higher realization, and therefore Vidura took advantage of a family misunderstanding in order to meet Maitreya Rishi. Text 3. Rajo Vacha Kutra Chatur Bhagavata Maitreya Sa Sangama Kadava Saha Samvada Itad Varnaya Na Prabhu. The king asks Sukadev Goswami, where and when did the meeting and discussion take place between Saint Vidura and His Grace Maitreya Muni? Kindly oblige my lord and describe this to us. Purport. Exactly as Sanaka Rishi inquired of Sutta Goswami and Sutta Goswami replied, so Srila Shukadev Goswami replied to King Parikshit's inquiries. The king was very anxious to understand the meaningful discussion that took place between the two great souls. Text 4. Nahyalpartodayastasya vidurasyamalatmana tasmin variyasi prashna sadhu vado prabramhita. Saint Vidura was a great and pure devotee of the Lord, and therefore his questions to Grace Rishi Maitreya must have been purposeful, very purposeful, on the highest level and approved by learned circles. Purport. Questions and answers among different classes of men have different value. Inquiries by mercantile men in the business exchange cannot be expected to be highly purposeful in spiritual values. Questions and answers by different classes of men can be guessed by the caliber of the persons concerned. In Bhagavad Gita, the discussion was between Lord Sri Krishna and Arjuna, the Supreme Person and the Supreme Devotee, respectively. The Lord admitted Arjuna to be his devotee and friend in Bhagavad Gita 4.3. And therefore, any sane man can guess that the discussion was on the topic of Bhakti Yoga, of the Bhakti Yoga system. Actually, the whole Bhagavad Gita is based on the principle of Bhakti Yoga. There is a difference between karma and karma yoga. Karma is regulated activity for the enjoyment of the fruit by the performer, but karma yoga is action performed by the devotee for the satisfaction of the Lord. Karma yoga is based on bhakti, or pleasing the Lord, whereas karma is based on pleasing the senses of the performer himself. According to the Srimad Bhagavatam, one is advised to approach a bona fide spiritual master when one is actually inclined to question from an elevated level of spiritual understanding. A common man who has no interest in spiritual values has no need to approach a spiritual master, just as a matter of following fashion. As a student, Maharaj Parikshit was serious about learning the science of God, and Sukadev Goswami was a bona fide spiritual master in the transcendental science. Both of them knew that the topics discussed by Vidura and Rishi Maitreya were elevated, and thus Maharaj Parikshit was very interested in learning from the bona fide spiritual master. Text 5. Sutta Uvacha Sa evam rishi bharyoyam Krishto ragya parikshita Pratyahatam subahuvit Pritatma Shruyatam iti. Sri Sutta Goswami said, the great sage Shukadev Goswami, Sri Sutta Goswami said, the great sage Shukadev Goswami was highly experienced and was pleased with the king. Thus, being questioned by the king, he said to him, please hear the topics attentively. Text 6. Shri Shuka Uvacha Yadhatu Rajasva Sutan Asadun Pushnanna Dharmena Vinasta Drishtihi Praturya Vistasya Sutan Vibandhum Pravesyasya Laksha Bhavane Dhadhada. Sri Sukadev Goswami said, King Dhritarashtra became blind under the influence of impious desires to nourish his dishonest sons, and thus he set fire to the lacquer house to burn his fatherless nephews, the Pandavas. Purport. Dhritarashtra was blind from birth, but his blindness in committing impious activities to support his dishonest sons was greater blindness than his physical lack of eyesight. The physical lack of sight does not bar one from spiritual progress, but when one is blind spiritually, even though physically fit, that blindness is dangerously detrimental to the progressive path of human life. Text 7. Yadha sabhyam kuru debha devyaha Kesha bimarsham sutta karma garyam Navarayam asa nirpasnusaya Svashrar harantyaha kucha kunkumani. The king did not forbid his son Dushasana's abominable action of grabbing the hair of Draupadi, the wife of the godly King Yudhisthira, even though her tears washed the red dust on her breast. Text 8. Dyutetva dharmena jitasya sadhoha Satyavalambasya vanam gatasya Nayachato dat samayena dayam Tamojusano yad ajata satruha. Yudhisthira, who was born without any enemy, was unfairly defeated in gambling, but because he had taken the vow of truthfulness, he went off to the forest. When he came back in due course and begged the return of his rightful share of the kingdom, he was refused by Dhritarashtra, who was overwhelmed by illusion. Purport. Maharaj Yudhisthira was the rightful heir to his father's kingdom, but just to favor his own sons, headed by Duryodhana, Dhritarashtra Maharaj, Yudhisthira's uncle, adopted various unfair means to cheat his nephews of their rightful share of the kingdom. At last, the Pandavas demanded only 5 villages, one for each of the 5 brothers. But that was also refused by the usurpers. This incident led to the war of Kurukshetra. The battle of Kurukshetra, therefore, was induced by the Kurus and not the Pandavas. As Kshatriyas, the proper livelihood of the Pandavas was only to rule and not to accept any other occupation. A Brahmana, Kshatriya, or Vaishya will not accept employment for his livelihood under any circumstances. Thus ends our reading for today. We will continue from text 9 on Wednesday. Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Shripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Srila Prabhupada, Srila Guru Maharaj, Srila Guru Dev, Srila Acharya Dev, Srila Shanta Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Rupanuga Guru Varga Ki Jai. Our glories to the assembled devotees, our glories to the worldwide devotees, Sama Bhaktiveda Vrinda Ki Jai. Jai Navadvip Dham, Nishringapuri Dham, Hayapur Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Ju Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Giri Govardhan Gupta Govardhan Dham Ki Jai. Sham Kund Radha Kund Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi, Bhakti Devi, Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Jai Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Haranam Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai. Scientific Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai. Princeton Bhaktivedanta Institute Ki Jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Institute Ki Jai. Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Pramanandi. Hari 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 Bol. Dhanava Pranams.